All sports, all the time.
There's heroes and there's legends. Heroes get remembered. Legends never die.
This is the Spoken Podcast.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
I'm your host, Lance Twidwell.
Man, that kid, he can ball, man. He can ball.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Patrick freaking Mahomes, baby!
Let's talk some sports, because that's what we're here to do.
You are tuned in to The Spoken.
This is the Spoken Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Twidwell, here inside the Starcade Media Studios with myself, and only I. It is a solo show. It is a solo act today, but I say that in jest because I'm not alone, because you're here with me today. I'm really excited about this. In case you guys are wondering where Trevor is at, he's safe, he's fine. He's not held up over here in the corner right now, all tied up, because he's a criminal that I'm waiting for the cops to come get. No. He's safe. He's fine. Him and the kiddos had themselves a nice little planned day. They have this big old Crypticon thing they're going to. They like seeing the spooky monsters. I'm here in support of showing my favorite childhood movie of all time. Well, it's tied with The Sandlot, but this is my favorite kid childhood scary movie of all time, The Monster Squad. So I'm showing support to my niece and my nephew as they're getting to go to Crypticon this year. That's one of their favorite things to do with their dad. So I hope they have a blast time. Love you guys. Hope you guys have a fun time. But we're going to have fun here today. It is a Spoken Podcast, episode 273. We're so happy to be with you, and so for you to be here with us, whether you were live streaming, podcasting, or YouTube, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this time as we have one hell of a show to get to, guys. This is going to be a really fun show, really light show. Probably won't go on for very long, even though I could talk my way out of anything and talk my way through anything. I don't want to sit here and jab my jaws too much. I do want to be interactive with you guys a lot today, which is why we tell you at the top of the show, like we tell you at the bottom of every single show. If you've not already gone to youtube.com, go to it right now, even during the middle of the show, and go to the Spoken Podcast, hit subscribe, hit notify, hit share, hit all that stuff, hit like, all those things. We appreciate all that, and it helps us big time. We're almost to 500 subscribers on YouTube, which is huge because we're about 6,000 on Facebook. We have thousands on Twitter as well. But YouTube is where we want to really start getting our reach going. And so that's what we're really focusing on. So go to youtube.com, Spoken Podcast, hit all that stuff. But then get in the chat. Get in the live chat today, especially today of all days. And I'll be getting to you guys as much as I possibly can today. I'm going to be, like I said, I'm going to be willing and dealing this whole thing on my own. I'm operating all the boards on my own today. I promise you guys, when I say the Trev, and back in the day when Eddie was doing the boards as well, how valuable those guys are, it is a very valuable thing, because when you're hosting a show trying to do that, it's like playing drums and singing at the same time. I don't know how the hell these guys do it, but I'm going to do my best. I've only done this a couple of times as a solo show, but I promise you we're going to have fun regardless of whatever we talk about today, however this thing goes, because we're going to, like I said, have a great time. And I definitely appreciate all you guys for already doing that. So, like I said, go to YouTube, hit that up, let us know what you guys think. What
bitch.
sports you guys want to talk about? I know this is usually the slower part of the year. Trust me, I get it. This is when we really have to start, diving deep, figuring things out. But when I say that we made it through COVID doing this show every single Saturday, I like to think we can get through this rough little patch of summertime with no basketball, no football to really talk about, because there's other things to talk about. And obviously there are things to talk about when it comes to the upcoming year. We're going to be talking about that. Obviously, you guys know that we're going to be, like I said, get into Speak It, where you guys, we dedicate an entire segment to you guys, where all your questions, whatever you guys want to ask, you guys ask it. I will give you guys my authentic response as best as possible throughout the show. If you have takes, I'll try to put them on the screen as much as I possibly can as well. And we'll just have a good back and forth as much as we possibly can today. And at the end of every single show, we will be handing out some L's. I'll give you guys some specific L's in the world of sports like we have done for the previous 272 episodes. But without further ado, it is time for Lance Rants.
Gotta scream! Yeah! We're back on motion! From out to the
So as you guys know, I'm very interactive on Twitter. This year I've been a little bit more on the chill side this off season, because to be honest with you guys, I'm not going to sit here and burn on things if there's not a ton to burn on. We talked about this a little bit last week about how these last couple of years I've been talking about some of the issues that I didn't like with the Chiefs and some of the things that they've been doing with their roster that I wasn't a big fan of and I felt they could have done better. And I talked about that stuff a lot, and I'm sure I wore some of you guys out, but you guys knew where I stood on those things. This offseason, we've already talked about some of these things. Now it's more of a wait and see type of approach. So today's show, we're going to be talking about some stuff that I put on Twitter that I know pissed a lot of people off, and it actually is praise to the Chiefs because they rank really high on this list. So I comprised a list of the top 5 all-time NFL dynasties, and I broke down why. I'm not one of those people that likes to put lists out there or put rankings out there and not really give my specifics as to why. I'm not one of those people that wants to just bluntly put something out there and then you don't really understand the context of why it is I have this team or that player where I have them. I will break this down for you guys, and I definitely want to get to you guys and hear your guys' opinions on the matters as well. But the 5 teams that I came up with throughout, and this is, some people missed this when I posted it on Facebook and Twitter. This is the greatest dynasties in NFL history since 1970. It's the live ball era. So I don't want to go back into the 60s, mostly because of the fact that the NFL was still so new at that time. There was still the AFL and the NFL back in the early 60s, and it took about a decade for the league to really shape into what it is, and that's why they consider it the live ball era in 1970. From that point on to now, the mergers and all those things. So I'm keeping it to 1970 to present day, the best 5 dynasties in NFL history. And I'll pull it if it's cool with you guys. I'm gonna pull this up because actually I don't think I have the top 5 on an actual spread, but I'm gonna break all of them down individually. But the top 5 I have is number 1 is the 1974 through 79 Steelers, the 2018 to present Chiefs, the 1991 through 1995 Cowboys, the 2001 to 2004 Patriots, and then the 2014 through 2018 Patriots. And I want to start from the top down and work my way out of the bottom and explain why there might be some confusion there at the bottom of that and why some of you guys might be frustrated about a particular team that I left out that I know some were very upset about. I'll explain that in a little bit as well. But let's start with the Steelers because I feel that this is a team that doesn't get, although a lot of people recognize them for their Super Bowl prowess in their time, I don't think people realize just how dominant this team was. The Steelers of the 70s are the only team to this point that have won 4 of 6 Super Bowls while winning back-to-back Super Bowls twice. To me, they are the current definition of what an NFL dynasty is, and it's incredibly impressive that it spanned 50 years of football for them to still be that definition. Now, there are teams that could very well fight for that, whereas the Chiefs dynasty, in my opinion, could be the one that stands in the way of changing that definition. But right now, I think it's very comfortable to say that the Steelers are that team that I still think represents, if we're to look back right now from the beginning, from the 1970 season to now, like what dynasty like really just embodies that definition of dominance and being at the top for so long and for a long stretch of time and winning so much. I think it is the 74 through 79 Steelers, and we'll show it right here. They were 67, 20, and 1 regular season record. They had 6 consecutive division championships, 5 AFC championship appearances. They were 13-2 in the postseason during this stretch, and obviously 4-0 Super Bowl record. We know that Bradshaw won all 4 of his Super Bowl appearances. We know that it wasn't Bradshaw that was the biggest reason why, but he was their quarterback, so therefore people attach that success to Terry Bradshaw. So right now, as it stands, I think that the Steelers are that team, and like I said, I think that the Chiefs could very well be the team that knocks them off of that, which is why I have the 2018 through present Chiefs as the number 2 all-time dynasty. Hear me out on this. So they've reached the second most consecutive conference title games in NFL history behind the Patriots, who I believe have, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 9 straight, and the Chiefs have it'll be 7 this year if they do it, but so it's 6 right now. They have the most regular season and Super Bowl postseason wins division titles and Super Bowl appearances wins since 2018. So for a 6-7 year stretch, there's literally not been a single team in the NFL remotely close to as good as the Chiefs have been. They've been the single-handedly best team in the NFL over the last 6 seasons. They're also the first team to win back-to-back Super Bowls since the 2004 Patriots. So for 2 decades, no one was able to do what the Chiefs just accomplished by winning back-to-back Super Bowls. Obviously, they have the same amount of Super Bowl wins as both the Patriots dynasties and the Cowboys dynasty, but what separates them from both those behind them is their sustained success. See, unlike the 2001 through 2004 Patriots, the Chiefs have made their postseasons. The Chiefs have made the postseason in every season during their dynastic run. And unlike the Steelers and Cowboys dynasties, the worst the Chiefs have finished during their stretch has been a loss in the conference title game. By the way, both of them were hosted by the Chiefs. They were in Arrowhead. So the worst they've done is home losses in the AFC title game over the last 6 years. While both the Steelers and Cowboys lost in the divisional round at least once in their dynasty run. If the Chiefs end up doing something no other team in NFL history has done in 2024, which is to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls, that would not only give them that exclusive bragging right to being that team, but it would give them 4 titles in 6 seasons, which again would tie the 70s Steelers, but they would have done it in more dominant fashion, in my opinion. And just like the 70s Steelers, they would win 4 of 6, like I said, but at worst, if the Chiefs were to win Super Bowl 59, they share the title for the greatest dynasty in NFL history with a team that played against an inferior league, which is where we would ultimately have to separate the two. And that's where I will separate the Steelers and Chiefs, is that although I still believe the Steelers of that time period are still the definition, I think that we all can sit here and appreciate the fact that over the last 50 years, the NFL has gotten drastically better. Just from an athletic standpoint, coaching perspective, I mean, you had great coaching back then, but let's be real. I mean, the West Coast offense hadn't even been created yet at that point. So we were watching a much different, much more quality style of football in today's NFL than what we saw back in Terry Bradshaw and Chuck Noll's day. Now, if you look here at the Chiefs right now, when it comes to their accolades, so they have a 75-24 regular season record. Obviously, they have 17 game schedules, and the fact that they have they've had a longer stretch, in my opinion, of dominance than the Steelers have to this point. Maybe I'm wrong, but I look at it like that. That's why I include one extra season to this point. They had obviously 6 consecutive division championships, 6 consecutive AFC championship appearances, 15-3 postseason record, along with a 3-1 Super Bowl record. Now we're just going to keep going down this list, and you guys let me know in the comments where you guys might agree or disagree with me on this one, but I'm going to keep rolling on here, guys, because I think the 90s Cowboys, who are my number 3 dynasty right now, I think they had a real shot of becoming the greatest dynasty in NFL history. I really, really do. If you look at the way they were winning and how it almost seemed easy to them, and they were beating an NFC league that at that time was better than the AFC, I mean, it was getting kind of scary how they were doing it, and it all revolved around Jimmy Johnson, as we know. He turned that franchise back into the direction they were 20 years before he arrived. They looked to be like a force unlike anything before or after them, and then, of course, as we all know, Jerry Jones decided to make it all about him, and to this day, they suffer because of that. I'm not saying that Jerry does everything wrong. In fact, I think Jerry does a lot of things right, but the biggest mistake he made is what's cost him over these last 30 years, and that's getting in the way of what Jimmy Johnson was doing, forcing him out, believing that they could have equal or better success with guys like Barry Switzer and Jason Garrett, Mike McCarthy. You go down the list of head coaches he's had over that time period. Even Bill Parcells, who was great in his own right. Let's be real. Bill Parcells became a dinosaur pretty quick in this league because he didn't want to adjust to the new era of football, and that's why he failed in Dallas. And quite frankly, I think there's an unprecedented amount of pressure being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys with a guy like Jerry Jones, who wants to be the face of that organization, who wants to be the voice of that organization. Jimmy Johnson, I believe, was very much on his way to doing something great there. And they already did. They won 2 Super Bowls with Jimmy. They won 3 ultimately, but that was Jimmy Johnson's team with Barry Switzer. They won 3 of 4 Super Bowls. And if you look right here, I'll show you guys their accolades as well in that time period. So they were 60-20 during the regular season, 4 consecutive division championships, 4 consecutive NFC championship appearances, 11-2 postseason record, 3-0 in the Super Bowl record. And the most important thing I want to express in this, guys, is the fact that unlike some of these other teams, and obviously the Steelers, I guess, would fly into this as well, their franchise, their dynasty wasn't built around their quarterback play. The Cowboys were built very old school. Run first, incredible offensive line play, incredible blocking, awesome defense, incredible coaching, and that's how they won games. Troy Aikman was never the guy that was leading the way for the Cowboys. He just stayed out of the way more times than not. But they were winning Super Bowls. They were winning a lot of playoff games. They were in the dance a lot, and I think the Cowboys, like I said, were squandered because of one man's ego, and that was Jerry Jones. And then if you look right here, guys, this is where I think this gets interesting, because I'm somebody that looks at the Patriots differently than others. Everyone thinks that the Patriots had this one long dynasty. And I'm going to explain to you guys what I believe a dynasty truly is. I believe a dynasty is a team that has a set amount of time where they are consistently they're playing at a dominant level, to where they're winning Super Bowls consistently. They're in the final 4 of their respective sports on a consistent basis. They're not having up and down seasons, turbulent seasons where they win a Super Bowl or get to a Super Bowl but then miss the playoffs the next year. To me, that's really turbulent. That takes you down a peg, in my opinion. And if we know anything about the Patriots, from 2001 to 2018, there was a significant problem. There was an entire decade in between where they didn't win a Super Bowl. So it's kind of hard for me to consider you a dynasty of 17 to 20 years when 10 of those seasons you didn't win a Super Bowl. I just don't see it. I understand it's the same head coach quarterback duo, but again, when you don't win a Super Bowl for an entire 10-year stretch, I don't believe you're the same dynasty you were before the previous 10 seasons. I think that it's 2 separate things, and that's why I segmented these 2 teams. And if you think about it, that's actually a bragging right to the Patriots to be able to say that with the same head coach and quarterback, they were able to have 2 different dynasties. That's pretty incredible shit, man. So, but the first one, the one that falls at number 4 on my list, is the 2001 to 2004 Patriots. See, like the Steelers, Chiefs, and Cowboys, the reason why I have them higher than the 2014 and 2018 Patriots is because they repeated as Super Bowl champs. To me, that's a big factor in all of this. And this was with a much lesser version of Tom Brady. As we all know, Tom Brady in his 20s wasn't nowhere near as good as he was in his late 30s, and especially in his later 40s. Tom Brady became a better quarterback as he aged. Which is really weird to say, but he became a better quarterback as time went on. Now, obviously, he benefited off the fact that the league was transitioning to more quarterback-friendly play as he got older, but the point is that you could tell there was a massive difference between 27, 28-year-old Tom Brady and 38, 39-year-old Tom Brady. He was better at 38, 39 than he was at 28, 29. So I would say that Tom Brady definitely benefited off that, but in this period, the Patriots were winning Super Bowls a lot like the Cowboys were, off really good coaching strategy, awesome defense, good running games, and just surviving games and getting through these ugly games and dominating in that fashion. If you look right here, because this is a little bit of a shorter window of time, they don't have as many wins as the other teams, but they were 48-16 during this time. They won 3 of 4 divisional championships, made 3 of 4 AFC championship appearances, 9-0 in their postseason run, and then obviously 3-0 in their Super Bowl run. So even though it was a shorter window of time, it was only a 4-season run, they were so dominant in the times they had those runs. Because if you know, in 2001, they won the Super Bowl, Tom Brady's first season as their starter, and then in 2002, they missed the playoffs. So that's a real big knock on. That's why they fall to 4, in my opinion, below these other 3 on top of them. But when it comes to what they did when they had their shots, they made the most of it. They won all 3 of those Super Bowls every time they got there. So I can't knock them and drop them to the bottom of the list because, like I said, they went 3-0 in those Super Bowls, and that's why they fall to number 4. Number 5 is the 2014 and 2018 Patriots. From 2014 to 2018, the Patriots played 4 of 5 Super Bowls in that span, and won 3 of them. You would think that would put them at number 3 or at least number 4, but see, all 3 of their Super Bowl wins in that span, let's be real, either should have been losses or they shouldn't have been in the game to begin with. See, against the Seahawks, the Patriots had a 10-point lead. The Seahawks had a 10-point lead going into the fourth quarter and had the ball on the 1-yard line with seconds remaining in the game, and they still found a way to lose. Don't ask me how Pete Carroll, a coach as good as he is, could have managed to squander that. I'll never understand it. That game should have been won by the Seahawks. That game was gift-wrapped to the freaking Patriots, to Tom Brady, to his legacy. I to this day, that game makes me sick to my stomach. Another game that makes me absolutely sick to my stomach, maybe even more so, was in Super Bowl 51 when the Falcons had a 28-3 lead. I mean, you saw that first half. You guys watched that game. You could just tell the Falcons were just the better team. And you could make the case in that game, and that season in particular, that Matt Ryan was the better quarterback. Won MVP, had a stellar season. They had incredible weapons, both offensively and defensively. They were sound. 28-3 point lead. How do you, to this day, 28-3 and you end up losing 34-28. You give up 31 unanswered points. It's the biggest choke job in NFL history. So the only reason and if we're going to be real here, the only reason the Super Bowl 52 had the Patriots in it was due to the then Chiefs defensive end, D Ford, as we all know, lining up both sides on a play that resulted in what would have been the game-deciding interception to Chiefs cornerback Charvarius Ward, and the Chiefs would have been in the Super Bowl. The Patriots then went on to win the single most boring Super Bowl in NFL history over the Rams by a score of 13-3, where 1 touchdown was scored all freaking game. So in other words, the 2014-18 Patriots won enough to make the top 5, but they are the worst of the 5. And I'm not trying to diss them because they were obviously good enough to be where they were, but stacking them up alongside these other 4 teams, I can't take them with any conviction because of how lucky they got so many times in these stretches. Regardless of whether you want to believe it or not, guys, the Seahawks should have won that Super Bowl, Falcons should have won that Super Bowl, and the Chiefs should have advanced in that AFC Championship. Those were all squandered choke job losses by those other teams. And yes, to the Patriots' credit, they capitalized. But let's be real, guys. Like it was so bad on those teams' sides. Those should be franchise backbreakers where those teams never recover, and some of them actually never did. Just the Chiefs really did. Now, and I want to show you guys their record just so I can give them the respect as well. So they were 62-18. That's incredible. They had a regular season record of 62-18, 5 consecutive division championships, 5 consecutive AFC championships, 12-2 in the postseason, and then 3-1 in the Super Bowl records. They were, like I said, they were sound, but we know there was a lot of context that goes into that. So those are my 5. And I know some of you might even be screaming. I haven't checked the comments yet because I've been trying to go down this list. But yeah, shout out to Ruben. What's up, dude? Chris Ratley. Hi, bro. I'm going to support you on YouTube. I appreciate that, my man. I really do appreciate that. Our guy, Alec Alvarez, says, what's good, Big Lance? What's good? Alex, been a long time, brother. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us today, man. Really do appreciate that. And yeah, chat me up, guys. Give me as much as you guys have. Yeah, there was a team in this that I know a lot of you, or at least a handful of you, really felt that I should have had them on this list, the top 5. Especially our producer, Clay Windler. And that was the 81 through 94 San Francisco 49ers. So I have to be the one that has to, honestly, I have to be the one that's brutally honest here. Because although, yes, from 81 to 94, the Niners had plenty of success, what I was just talking about a few minutes ago about, teams that have roller coaster rides, that peak real high and then drop real low and then, start to gradually peak again, then drop low again. That's what the Niners were in that time period. Plus, there's a lot of context to it. So if you look at this is their timeline here. And you can't see 81. I apologize for that. It cuts off. But in 81, they won the Super Bowl. If you look at 82, there's a blank space. You know why that is? Because they missed the playoffs entirely. So they missed the playoffs entirely, and that knocks them down, like I said. Then if you look, they lost to the conference finals, which, good season, 10-6, lose the conference finals. They get back and they win the Super Bowl. So you've won 2 of 4, which, they're on their way to being a dynasty. 100% fair, because that's what the Chiefs were. But even with that, you get knocked because you missed the playoffs entirely in that second season. But it's the next 3 seasons that makes them not a dynasty. So look at the next 3 years after they won their second Super Bowl. Lost the wild card round, and then back-to-back losses in the divisional round. They didn't get back to the NFC title game for another 4 years. Now, yes, they won back-to-back Super Bowls. But then they lose in the conference finals after that and then miss the playoffs again. And at that point, Joe Montana is no longer their quarterback. Joe Montana goes and plays with the Chiefs in 1992. This is when Steve Young takes over. They lose back-to-back conference title games in 93, 92, 93, and then they finally win the Super Bowl with Steve Young in 1994 when they whooped the living shit out of the Chargers. Maybe the best offensive game we've ever seen in a Super Bowl game. So you look at this list, guys, and you see a lot of what? Turbulence. 1 minute they're at the top, they drop right down to the bottom. They lose consecutively from 85 to 89, or 85 to 88, where they can't win. They can't get even back to the NFC title game. It's hard for me to call you a dynasty when, one, you can't win consecutively, you win back-to-back, and then you change your quarterback within a year later. So it's hard for me to attach it as a single dynasty when you have 2 different quarterbacks playing in this span, and you miss the playoffs multiple times in this run. Maybe you guys think my standards are too high, but if you look at these other teams that I have above them, none of them have this problem where they're missing the playoffs multiple times, where they went 4 or 5 years without even getting back to the title game. Like, that's not the case for any of these other teams. So that's why I have the Niners on the outside looking in. You guys let me know what you guys think on this one. Because I think I made one hell of a list. TBH. Let me know in the chat, guys, what you guys think on that one. I'll let that one ride all day. You guys let me know what you guys think on that one. Another thing I want to rant on is it's actually something I'm proud of. I'm proud of ESPN. I don't say that very often. But I'm actually proud of ESPN this week because we know over the last 4 or 5 years, there's always these lists or these questions, and we all know that Mahomes is the answer. We all know if you were to build a team, if you were to have one quarterback for one game or one drive, who's that guy? Who's your quarterback? We all know it's Patrick Mahomes. We're not even having this discussion, but yet we heard Dan Orlovsky just a year ago say that Patrick Mahomes is the best football player in the world, but Joe Burrow is the better quarterback. Yeah, he really said that. Still have no idea what the fuck that means. But ESPN decided to grow up this year. And maybe it's because Patrick Mahomes decided to just force feed them, the truth of what is and what isn't. So here's a segment right here that happened yesterday on ESPN. Which quarterback after Patrick Mahomes would you select to start your team? You notice that one? You see it? Did you look at it? Would you look at it? Which quarterback after Patrick Mahomes would you select to start your team? Now, I think on the bottom here, there's not bad answers. We can debate that in a second, and trust me, we will. But I wanted to give a little shout out because I feel, we sit here and we shit on these guys a lot whenever we get an opportunity to. I want to give them their credit where credit is due. These guys deserve credit. They decided to have an honest conversation. Because we all know deep down, guys, if you're starting a team, you're starting with 28-year-old Patrick Mahomes who's already won 3 Super Bowls, who has a grand opportunity to be the first quarterback to ever win 3 in a row. There's just no debating it. What there is a debate on, though, is which quarterback after Patrick Mahomes would we select to start our team. I was trying to narrow it down to one, and I had a difficult time doing so. But there is a list that I want to give you guys, and I came up with 5 names, and I want to get your guys' thoughts and opinions on these 5 names because these are the guys that I think, and I'm going to explain. I'm going to give you guys my reasons why when it comes to why I picked these guys in particular. But these are the 5 best names I came up with when it comes to after Patrick Mahomes. If I'm, the Chiefs or I'm the Bengals or I'm the whatever teams I'm coming up with, who is the guy that I'm saying I want that guy? I'm now building my team around that dude. Here are my 5 guys. So, starts with Josh Allen, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Jordan Love, and then Caleb Williams. Now, I know that you guys are probably looking at the bottom of that list and thinking, what in the living hell is Lance talking about? See, if you look at this list right here, there are 4 names of guys that are pretty much still unproven. C.J. Stroud had probably the best rookie season we've ever seen a quarterback have. So that's why I'm very confident with him because he's got that it factor about him. He's got a ton of talent. We always knew that, back at Ohio State. But he really destroyed that narrative of Ohio State quarterbacks playing in the NFL and transitioning into the NFL because we know that this guy obviously has what it takes. And I think that Caleb Williams could do the same with USC quarterbacks transitioning to the NFL. We'll get to him in a second. But I had CJ Stroud at number 2 because of that very reason, because he's obviously still so young on a rookie deal, and I think that he's a guy that I think will become an elite quarterback if he's not already in the NFL. Josh Allen is my number 1 guy because Josh Allen is only 28 years old, and although you guys know that I criticize the shit out of Josh Allen, the only reason I criticize Josh Allen is because Josh Allen, I expect greatness from him because he's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. And I think he has fallen short far too many times. But one thing I will always give Josh Allen, besides his obvious talent, is the fact that this dude balls out in the postseason year after year after year. And if it wasn't for Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen probably has at least 1 Super Bowl championship. I think that 2020 Bills team probably wins the NFL Super Bowl. I feel pretty damn good about that. And that 2021 Bills team was good enough to win the Super Bowl as well. And that was probably Josh Allen's best, the best version of who he was. So Josh Allen's at the top of my list. Still young. I mean, he's not cheap, obviously, but you could build around this guy. He's durable. He's huge. Dual threat quarterback. Insane arm. Insane legs. Plays incredible in the postseason. It's hard for me not to put him at the top of the list. Then I have Anthony Richardson. See, the biggest reason why I have Anthony Richardson, guys, the only reason I have him and the guys below him is because of the fact that it's all about potential. See, there's quarterbacks in the league that we know who they are, and I don't feel good enough about picking them. Even if they're still young, like Joe Burrow's 27. Lamar Jackson's 27. But those guys' games and their health and availability scare the shit out of me. So I'm building a franchise, although those guys are great when they're healthy, do I know that they're going to stay healthy? No. Now, obviously, Anthony Richardson got hurt last season, but that's 1 season. We've seen multiple seasons out of Joe Burrow. We've seen multiple seasons out of Lamar Jackson where they can't stay healthy and their seasons are done and their teams are done because of it. I believe Anthony Richardson is going to be a fine quarterback in this league. In fact, I think he's been an incredible quarterback in this league. He's way too talented, and he plays in Shane Steichen's offense. I love the potential of Anthony Richardson. We saw Jordan Love come on last season, and when he came on, he became one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league, in my opinion. Dude threw over 32 touchdowns last year, threw 5 touchdowns in the postseason, only 2 interceptions. Absolutely balled out against that 49ers team. Should have won that game. Very close neck-and-neck game throughout. The Packers had no business even being in the postseason, but Jordan Love dug them out of the trenches. Got that offense, I think, is talented, but man, it's really hard to dig out who's their best receiver because it just feels like Jordan Love just picks one per week, and they absolutely ball out. I love what I'm seeing from Jordan Love, and I think he's going to be one of those guys as well. Caleb Williams is one of the single most talented quarterbacks I've ever seen. And this is what it's all about, is potential talent. Do I believe in you? I believe in Caleb Williams. I think with the right coaching, I believe this dude can be a very good quarterback in this league. I do believe that he can play within the confines of the construct of an offense. I know he does all the cool stuff and fun stuff, which is what we all pay attention to. But if we're being honest here, man, we've seen guys like him, which, Patrick Mahomes' talent is often compared. They're often compared to each other. We've seen Patrick Mahomes last year play like a conservative quarterback. I believe Caleb Williams can do the same thing if he has to, where he has to play a little more conservative, pick your spots to be Superman, and that's how you win. That's how you win the way that Patrick Mahomes has. If Caleb Williams wants to replicate a great career like Patrick Mahomes, he's going to have to take the same advice and do those things. So those are my 5 right there. I would love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you guys think. Sorry about that. I get a little ahead of myself here. Hope you guys didn't see that one. Let's see. CJ. So Max, our guy Max saying CJ Stroud. Yes, that's CJ Stroud. I don't know if you're asking me why I have him on my list or if you're not seeing him on the list, but he was definitely on the list. And there, like I said, big reason why is because you saw how he's turned around that Texans team. Now, DeMeco Ryans, their head coach, deserves a ton of respect for that as well. He's a leader of men on the defensive side of things, so we know that the offense is going to be what C.J. Stroud brings to the table every single week. And I absolutely love what I've seen from the guy. So yeah, he's definitely on my list. Our guy Max Watson says, "I was just telling you my answer." Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, yep, makes sense, Max. So those are the guys I would build my team around. Give me your guys' list if you guys have it. After Patrick Mahomes, which quarterback would you select to start a team? I'll show you guys that list one more time so you guys know. So you guys can't tell me that you didn't see it because I know you did. Here it is right here. Josh Allen, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Jordan Love, and Caleb Williams. Now I want to do something fun. Excuse me, I got to get some of this liquid death in me. When you're talking the whole show, I mean, you guys know I talk throughout the show, even with Trevor on it. But when you're just by yourself, man, you gotta take a few more swigs. Which, by the way, these are good. They don't promote us yet, but they will one day. So, because we're on the conversation of quarterbacks, I also wanted to give you guys, because we do this every year, and I figured we can do this now because training camps are going to be here at any time. Which, by the way, I'm very excited about because we need to get back to football. Let's be real, guys. I'm starting to get the itch. I need football back in my life. I enjoy my free Sundays and times like that. It's great and all, but I definitely miss waking up, turning on my television, and watching football until I go back to bed. those Sundays are definitely needed and missed for sure. So I'm going to give you guys my top 10 quarterbacks coming into 2024 season. This one, actually, I'm willing to bet is probably going to be even more controversial than my previous chart about who I would build my roster on after Patrick Mahomes. So let's not waste your time. Here are my, let's see here, top 10 quarterbacks. No, that's the other one. Here we go. Top 10 quarterbacks. Sorry, it cuts off at the very bottom here. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, number one. I'm consistent with my Josh Allen take because Josh Allen, like I said, 28 years old, is as talented as any quarterback in this league. Is as good as any quarterback outside of Patrick Mahomes in the postseason when he plays in the postseason. My number 3 might shock you guys, Matthew Stafford. See, the biggest reason why I have Matthew Stafford this high up on my list is because I've always been a believer in Matt Stafford. I believe he's one of the more talented quarterbacks we've ever seen. He carried a shit, and I mean shit, Detroit Lions franchise to multiple playoff runs. Didn't have success in the postseason, but again, when you're carrying a bad, give Matt Stafford today's Lions team, and you're talking about a perennial Super Bowl contender. And speaking of that, the one time Matt Stafford has had a Super Bowl caliber roster around him, what did he do? Well, that's right. He went on to have maybe the greatest postseason run of all time statistically and won the Super Bowl. Matt Stafford, to me, is a very underrated quarterback in this league, and I think that he's been top 5 for me for the last couple of years for sure. And if you look at his postseason career, he's better than Aaron Rodgers. He's better than a lot of quarterbacks that we hold in high regard. He's definitely better than the majority of the guys on this list. Now, some of these guys haven't had postseason runs yet, like C.J. Stroud. He's played one playoff game. Jalen Hurts, he had his one run. Jordan Love at the bottom, he's had his one run so far. But if you go compare Matt Stafford's postseason career numbers to Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Joe Burrow, any of these veterans on there outside of Patrick Mahomes, and it's just as good, if not better. So that's why he's high up on this, because he's a guy that performs at a high level in the big games, extremely talented, a guy that I can rely on because although I know he gets banged up, Matt Stafford doesn't miss a ton of games, if that makes sense. Like, he gets banged up, but he fights through injuries. Like, this dude will be on the field with a lot of injuries. So that's why I have him above a lot of these other guys. Now, Lamar Jackson's my number 4. I know what you guys are thinking. Well, Lamar Jackson's won multiple MVPs in his career. Why isn't he above everybody else outside of Patrick Mahomes? Well, if this was an MVP discussion, if this was a MVP, count the MVPs, yeah, Lamar would be right there with Patrick because he has as many regular season MVPs as Patrick Mahomes does. But guys, to kind of steal this one off my guy Nick Wright, it's never a good look when your worst game of the season always seems to be the last game of your season. And that's Lamar Jackson's story. Coming into this last postseason, guys, he had more interceptions than touchdowns. Now I think he has 6 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, and I think he has like a 75 quarterback rating in the postseason. Lamar Jackson has not been good. He's not been good in his postseason career. And I have a hard time. I have a hard time putting somebody, and I think 4 is a decent number if we're being real here, because Lamar Jackson is one of the most dynamic players I've ever seen at the quarterback position. And I think that Lamar Jackson deserves his credit for having those MVPs. And I think now, because he's won those MVPs, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. But Lamar has got to start playing better in postseason games if he wants to be higher on this list. But I think top 5 is more than fair for Lamar Jackson at this current time. He's still got plenty of football left, and that's why I'm still giving him the opportunity to climb the ladder here. Now, I know this one might shock you guys, but I have Dak Prescott at number 5 right now. Biggest reason why Dak Prescott is so high on this list is because Dak Prescott is one of the most consistent quarterbacks in this league. Dak Prescott is averaging well over 4,400 yards and about 30 touchdowns a season over the last 5 years when he's healthy. And he's been healthy for the majority of his career. He's a guy that's very durable. Outside of that really bad leg injury that he suffered a couple of years ago, Dak Prescott plays almost every single week. And I know that there's times where he puts up numbers against bad teams or teams that, they kind of pile on. But I've seen Dak Prescott in big games put up big numbers, but he gets bad. He gets put in a bad light because coaching decisions or bad defensive play, whatever the case is, he often gets blamed for those things. And I've always had a problem with quarterbacks taking the blame for everybody else's blunders. We've seen Dak Prescott also choke. He's played like shit sometimes in the postseason. He's played like shit in some big regular season games as well. So I won't take that away from him. But Dak Prescott is about as consistent as it gets in the NFL when it comes to production, when it comes to getting to the postseason. Obviously, he needs to knock that door down. But if you look at the rest of the guys below him, none of those guys have rings. None of those guys have been knocking the door down to winning Super Bowls. There's only 2 guys on that list below him, or there's a few guys on the list below him that have gotten to Super Bowls, but I think it had more to do with their surrounding casts than who they were. I think Dak Prescott could have made a Super Bowl with several of these other guys' teams. Dak Prescott is, in my opinion, one of the more undervalued quarterbacks in this league, and I think that because, kind of like what we talked about with Jerry Jones kind of implementing himself over a lot of other things, it's a lot more difficult to succeed with that than if he was to play in Kansas City with Clark Hunt as his owner that kind of lets you be the voice, and he stands more in the background on things. Now, you guys know I'm big on C.J. Stroud. That's why I have him at number 6. I think C.J. Stroud is going to be an elite quarterback. I wanted to put him higher on this list, but I just couldn't do it with any conviction yet because we've only seen one season, and that one season I was very impressed, and I told you guys middle of last season that I would take C.J. Stroud over Justin Herbert without a moment's hesitation. Because unlike Justin Herbert, C.J. Stroud has this it factor about him. You can tell that C.J. Stroud can see the game slower than most. It just feels natural to C.J. Stroud. Everything just feels natural. And if we're being honest here, C.J. Stroud, through his one season, hasn't had anywhere near the weapons that a guy like Justin Herbert's had. Yet he just had the best rookie season we probably have ever seen. And that includes Justin Herbert's in 2020 when there were no road crowds. No wonder Justin Herbert had such a significant rookie season and hasn't had as good of a season since. C.J. Stroud at number 6. Jared Goff is a guy to me that I feel like could be 7th or 14th because I've seen different versions of Jared Goff. But the most recent version is, and that's what I base this off of, is what have you done for me lately? Jared Goff with a talented offense is nails. He has an offensive line that protects him, and he has really good receiving options and good running backs out of the backfield. And this man put up over 4,600 yards last season and 30 touchdowns. And got himself to the NFC Championship. I don't really know what the negatives are on Jared Goff. I think he's a limited quarterback. Obviously he's not very mobile. Doesn't have the strongest arm by any means. But there's a reason why teams love Jared Goff. There's a reason why, with both franchises that he's played with, he's had deep playoff runs. It's because he's accurate. It's because he's poised. It's because he makes good decisions. And I think that's why Jared Goff belongs in the top 10. Now, I know this next one's going to shock the shit out of some of you. And that's okay. Because Joe Burrow should be higher on this list. But see, I have to be consistent here. I have to be fair to everybody on this list. I criticize Lamar Jackson for, although he has 2 MVP seasons, he sucks ass in the postseason. That's why he falls down on my list. Joe Burrow can't stay healthy. Am I wrong here? In just over a little over 3 seasons in the NFL, or 4 seasons in the NFL, this man's missed over 15 games. And we're not talking about, a shoulder sprain. We're not talking about, a hamstring here or there. We're talking about injuries that maybe could change the way the rest of his career goes, with his throwing hand injury, the lower leg injuries. Those things always just seem to stick around with quarterbacks. Obviously, he's had multiple ACL injuries. I mean, the dude's 27 years old, and he's taking a beating. He moves around sometimes like he's 45. And I do worry about Joe Burrow's longevity in this league. And if we're being honest here, too, the best, most impressive run Joe Burrow has had of his career had everything to do with the Chiefs melting down in the second half of that 2021 AFC Championship. And if Patrick Mahomes doesn't have his worst half of his career, we're not talking about Joe Burrow making a Super Bowl appearance, guys. We're talking about Joe Burrow making an AFC Championship appearance, which is impressive, but not nearly as impressive as what people try to deem it to be. And I think that Joe Burrow got a lot of greatness, and this is coming from my perspective because I'm guilty of this. We attached a lot of greatness on Joe Burrow because he's cool. He's a good-looking dude. He's got that swagger about him. He's a good quarterback. We've also never seen him without 2, prolific wide receivers. We haven't. He played a few games without Jamar Chase in 2020, and then Jamar Chase was drafted in 2021. I'm not knocking Joe Burrow. What I'm saying is I'm contextualizing him. And when he misses almost all of last season, he misses so many games last season, and when he did play last season, he wasn't very impressive. I have to knock him down my list because these other guys are playing at a higher level right now. Maybe he'll climb up because more than likely Joe Burrow should be a top 5 quarterback. But these other guys have been more consistent just in the health department alone. And because of that, Joe Burrow has to fall down my list. And if you go and look at his postseason run, guys, Titans, Raiders, Chiefs, and then the Rams, he wasn't that impressive in the postseason. And through 7 postseason games, Joe Burrow has 0 fourth-quarter touchdowns. And you can't show me the blowout games in the postseason. They've needed those touchdowns. The Bengals did. And he couldn't get it to them. Then there's Jalen Hurts. Look, Jalen Hurts has had a kind of a turbulent career. But see, Jalen Hurts, man, what I love about his game is that he can kill you in a myriad of ways. He is so athletically gifted. He can do the tush-push crap, which I hate, but it works. He can run outside. Dude gets 600, 700, 800 yards a season. Ton of rushing touchdowns. But he's got a good arm. He's got an accurate arm. He's gotten better over the years. Granted, he's got a ton of great weapons as well and a really good system. But we saw Jalen Hurts do something that no other quarterback on this list outside of Patrick Mahomes has ever done, which has had an historically great Super Bowl performance. He was unbelievable in that Super Bowl 2 years ago against the Chiefs. Unbelievable. The Chiefs had no shot at Jalen Hurts. Had it not been for that scoop and score where Chris Jones opened up that hole for Nick Bolton to go and get that ball when he scared the Christ out of Jalen Hurts, the Chiefs probably don't win that game. Like, a lot had to go right for the Chiefs in that game, and all of it did. But Jalen Hurts was he was sensational from the start of that game to the end of it. Sensational. And I don't think enough people give him enough respect for what he did in that. Now, he shit the bed in the postseason last year against the Buccaneers. For some reason, he just does not play well in Tampa Bay. I don't know what it is because he played horrible in his first season as well. But I think Jalen Hurts is more than deserving to be in a top 10 quarterback because it's what he's proven himself to be in big moments, big games against teams like the Chiefs. May not win them, but this dude balls, and he balls out well, man. He's played really well in his postseason career to this point. Jalen Hurts at my number 9 spot. It's a little cut off on the bottom, but I am giving Jordan Love some love. I know he hasn't played a ton of games at a high level yet, but what I've seen from Jordan Love last season, I think he finally caught stride. I think he's finally showing us who he is. I think that Jordan Love is a for-real quarterback in this league. I think he's poised and he's ready. He's, 25, 26 years old, really coming into his form. I think he's going to be one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league. Now, I know some of you are probably pissed off because you're saying, well, where the hell is Justin Herbert? Guys, I've been saying this, and I'll stay consistent with it until he proves me wrong. Justin Herbert is a great talent. Justin Herbert is not a great quarterback. That's just the facts of it. Justin Herbert had a unreal rookie season. And since then, with the weapons he's had, it's been underwhelming to me. And when you lose a playoff game like he did against the Jags 2 years ago, in just one of the most choke job fashions, I mean, that made the Falcons blush. It's hard for me to put you above other guys that are performing at higher levels that may not be as talented as you are. And I will say that. Justin Herbert, outside of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, he might be the most talented quarterback in the league. But what is he doing with that talent? Is it translating into victories? Is it translating into moving the Chargers further down the road? Getting them to deeper into postseasons? No. They've been to the postseason one time, and they had one of the most embarrassing losses in the history of the NFL. You got to take a hit for that. So that's what I think is happening. That's where I think my top 10 are at right now. I'd love to hear from you guys. It looks like the comments are starting to explode a little bit here. So let's get to you guys a little bit here. So let's see. Our guy Ruben Cruz said he has Allen up there. Our guy Max Wasson said, "Do you think we throw a bag at Sean McVay once Reed retires?" We'll get to that in a second. Our guy Lonnie Pyramid, you my guy Lance, hope all is well. Shout out to you, Lonnie. Always love and appreciate your support, brother. It really means a lot, especially on days like today when it's solo dolo time. Always appreciate when you jump in, brother. Let's see here. Better late than never. What up, boys? What up, Dustin? Hope you and Cooper doing good. Lonnie asked for Trevor. He's out in Crypticon. Him and the kiddos got a chance. That's their little annual tradition. We're all horror movie fans here, in the Twidwell family. So whenever they get a chance to go do that, they do that. Our guy Ruben DeCruz. Burrow has done nothing. I would say nothing, Ruben, but he hasn't done nearly as much as people have let on, if that makes sense. He's not the quarter. Like I said, I think greatness has been attached to him because the last time we saw him in college, he had probably the best college team of all time, and they won the national championship, and he was smoking that stogie. I think we just attach greatness to him naturally because of how cool he is, how successful he was in that final year of his college career. Let's see. Lonnie Pyramid. Let's see. Man, it was funny how they tried to elevate Allen and Burrow over Mahomes without him laying any real pavement. Exactly. I think Allen is, even though, and this might not make sense to some of you guys, even though Burrow has technically been further in the postseason than Allen has been more consistent in his postseason career as an individual player. And I think that's why you're going to see Allen on a little bit higher on people's boards, and he stays healthy. He's healthier than Joe Burrow. He's a tougher player. He's he's a tougher player, and so that's why I'd have Josh Allen above Joe Burrow. Let's see here, yeah. Our guy Tony. I agree, Lance. Caught stride big time. Yeah, I would agree. No, it was horrible. Yes, yeah. Most of what you guys are seeing is stuff I agree with as well. I'm glad you guys are seeing it from my perspective. And give me your list. Like I said, give me your top 10. Let me know what you guys think. Why you guys have your top 10. I've been giving you guys lists all day. Give me your top 5 NFL dynasties. Give me your guys' the quarterbacks you would build your franchise around if you didn't have Patrick Mahomes, obviously, and then give me your top 10 quarterbacks. I'd love to hear from you guys, and it's the perfect time to do it because, as we all know, what we do every single week, we have a segment called Speak It. So whatever questions or concerns you guys have, let me know right now in the comments. Whatever questions you guys want to bring up. Let's see. Let's start with Max. I told him I'd get to that in just a second when it comes to questions. Max asks, do you think we throw a bag at Sean McVay once Reed retires in the late 2020s, early 2030s? I would like to believe that Sean McVay would be high up on the Chiefs list. But, man, something tells me, and again, I would love it, just for the record. If the Chiefs could get Sean McVay, I would love that because I think he'd be the best guy on the list outside of like a Kyle Shanahan, Shane Steichen. I'm really big on Shane Steichen as well. I just feel that this franchise, even though there's been so much change, there are things they're still so traditional about. And I think that Andy Reid's going to have his successor on the staff. I think that his successor will be on the staff before he retires. It's just the way they've always done things, you know. Like, I know this sounds a little bit different because of the nepotism factor of being the son, but like, you know, when Lamar Hunt sat down, he obviously had his son Clark and his other children run the franchise for him. So that's not as uncommon as you think. But then, you know, John Dorsey is their GM. Andy Reid has a guy waiting in the wings in Brett Veach. I just think that's just how they do things here because they want to make sure that they keep the culture intact. They don't want to have an outsider. And I'm not saying Sean McVay wouldn't be a hell of a culture guy here. I definitely believe he would. But, I mean, the Chiefs would have to spend a ton of money. I don't know if they'd be willing to do that after losing Andy Reid. They'd want to probably start over. And again, I think they trust Andy's judgment. If Andy's saying, you know, it's a Matt Nagy or, you know, another coordinator he's had on the team for a little bit of time, if he feels comfortable with them and they trust Andy Reid's words, I think they probably go that route. So I'm gonna say they don't, but I would love it. I would definitely love it. Excuse me. Let's see here. The defensive coach has hurt Allen too. I would agree with that, Ruben. When it comes to Josh Allen, that's why you know, Trevor and I. It's funny because before we got on the show, we were talking about just how there's this misconception about, well, you know, Patrick Mahomes is having all the success because he plays for Andy Reid. Well, then we'd have to do the same thing for Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. More times than not, though, it is better for a quarterback to play with an offensive-minded head coach than the other way around. That's why the Brady and Belichick situation was so unique because Brady, obviously being the quarterback, Belichick being this defensive-minded guy, for it to work the way it did, it took certain compromises from both sides. Whereas Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, I feel like they have this. There's just such a level-headedness, a humbleness between both of them. I think they both just kind of understand each other. They're always on the same page, and if they're not, they get on the same page quickly. There's no animosity, bad blood. You don't feel that same just between them that you felt between Belichick and Brady. You knew that Belichick and Brady, like, in certain ways, just did not like each other. Now they patched it all up and they'll act like everything was good. I'm willing to bet it wasn't. I'm willing to bet there was times where they absolutely just hated each other, and so much so they were willing to part ways. Let's see here. Dustin says, if we can't have Mahomes, Allen with Reid could be magic as well. I agree. I think that, and a lot of people think that Allen would automatically have all these rings too if he played with Andy Reid. That's not necessarily the case, guys, because we've seen Andy Reid have some decent quarterbacks in the past, and they didn't win anything. Donovan McNabb may not be Josh Allen, but Donovan McNabb was a good quarterback. Alex Smith, not Josh Allen, good quarterback. They didn't win a lot. This is where the Mahomes factor comes into play, is that, you know, we had 20 years of Andy Reid as a head coach, 0 Super Bowl wins. In fact, he only went to 1. He said Patrick Mahomes for 6 seasons, he's been to, 4 Super Bowls, won 3 of them. It's different. You get that guy, and you get a guy that's all-time transcendent. great coaches become the all-time great coaches. That's how it goes, man. They get elevated to another level. All right, let's see here. Dustin Orton asks the question: Prime Attitude Era, who do you choose? Lance, Undertaker, Rock, or Stone Cold? As far as like my favorite, I mean, all three of those guys were three of my favorite dudes. They all served a different purpose. I don't think anybody ever had a bigger flash in the pan career than Stone Cold Steve Austin, though. A lot of people thought Stone Cold was around for like 16, 17 years. Stone Cold was only around for about 6. It was like from like 97, 98 to like 2003. And then what's his name? Owen Hart really screwed up Stone Cold's neck on that pile driver. Or there was a tombstone maybe. Really messed his neck up. He was never the same since then. And after a while, his body just started to really wear out, and you could tell that Stone Cold couldn't handle the rigors of being a weekly performer, and it quickly died, and it really sucks because Stone Cold was, I think, maybe the most polarizing. But The Rock, the way he talked to the crowd, I mean, it's really hard to. I would say it's like Rock 1, Stone Cold 2, then the Undertaker 3. Undertaker was awesome, but he also went through a lot of changes too in his career. Like he was the death guy, then he became like the motorcycle guy with Limp Bizkit, keep rolling, which I liked it all. But he went through a lot of transitions, and he went back to the death guy. Whereas Stone Cold and The Rock, we knew who they were from like day one. Like they were pretty consistent as to who they were. So I'd probably say Rock just from an entertainment perspective, Stone Cold from a badass perspective, and Undertaker just as this monster that knew how to act really well because he could change things up. Yeah, it was a pile driver. Thank you, Dustin. I remember seeing the video. You're supposed to hold the guy's head a little bit higher when you drop down. His Stone Cold's head was like right at Owen's knees. So his head, his neck and everything just crunched. He's lucky. Stone Cold's lucky to be able to walk because it could have very well been something that paralyzed him. But I'm not seeing a lot of questions here, man. And Dustin, you're right about the longevity stuff with Taker. And I think he had 23 or 24 straight WrestleManias where he won them all. They eventually made him lose. I hated that. I wish that streak would have stayed together, but they made him lose. So that's that is what it is. Who cares? Let's see here. CJ Stroud. No, that's Max, the old one. Okay. Well, we don't have a lot of questions, guys. I won't take too much of your time today because, like I said, it's where we're at. You know what I mean? It's not a lot going on. We will definitely have more to talk about as the season goes on. I wanted to get a show in today, give you guys at least an hour or so of content. And give you guys an opportunity to take over the show if you wanted to. We're here. We're chilling. And like I said, this is what we do. You guys can obviously in the chat every single week, even when we're not on air, you guys can still comment in there. We get back to you guys, and we can talk from there as well. But appreciate the comments. Appreciate the questions. It's always fun to communicate with you guys. And with that said, we have one more order of business to get to, and it is called Hold This L. Each and every episode, we finish off every single episode with a series of L's in the world of sports. Whether those L's are friendly L's, not so friendly L's in the world of sports, we promise you, whoever is holding the L in the world of sports that week deserve that L in the world of sports. But I actually want to start with a W because something profoundly historic happened this week. And yes, it has to do with LeBron James. I don't care if you guys are sick of hearing about it. Because this is something I marvel over. If you didn't hear, the NBA draft took place this week. You went the 55th overall pick. The Lakers currently, we're expecting LeBron James to sign back with the Lakers. The Lakers drafted Bronny James Jr., LeBron James Jr. Now, we can sit here and speculate as to what Bronny James is going to become as an NBA player. But I don't want to do that. Because I like stories first. And this is an incredible story. It's an incredible sports story. Look at this picture right here. LeBron's probably 21, 22 in this picture. Bronny's probably 3, maybe. They're now teammates. Think about that for a second. These two guys in this picture right now, are now NBA teammates. And the idea of being able to play a pro sport with your father, there are very few things on this planet that could be better. I have my dad. I'm lucky to have my dad. Love my dad. Very good man. Hard worker. Doesn't ask for a lot. And some of my favorite memories of my life were playing on the same softball team with my dad. We go out and play Tuesdays and Thursday nights. Love those times. There was even a night where me and my dad went back to back, kind of like the Griffey Senior, Griffey Junior situation. And that was softball. And I thought that, I was on cloud nine after that. And I'm thinking of, Ken Griffey Jr. and his dad. And I compared LeBron and his son being able to do this together to them. And, people came to me like, Lance, you can't really compare the two because, Ken Griffey and Ken Griffey Jr. were so much better. And I'm not here to do that, guys. I'm not trying to make a comparison saying that, Bronny James is the next Ken Griffey Jr. at basketball. No. What I'm saying is, from a story perspective, this is so cool. This is so awesome because you get to experience something that, because LeBron is already the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1% athlete. And now he gets to do something that no other NBA player has ever done, which is to not only play in the same league at the same time as his kid, but to play on the same team. This is so cool. Well, you don't have to be a LeBron fan. If you're a family person, if you have a son, you have a child, put yourself in this position and think about how awesome that would be. And if you don't have kids, think about doing this with your dad. How freaking cool this would be. I love that this has happened. I have no idea how it's going to pan out. All I do know is this is probably the proudest moment of LeBron James' entire NBA career. To know that he took care of himself long enough, stayed healthy long enough to be able to play with one of his sons. And hell, he keeps playing like this, he'll probably end up be playing with Bryce, his second son. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, I wanted to put a W out there for the great James family and say congratulations to them because they deserve every bit of that. I was so happy to see that, man. Unfortunately, I have to give an L out here. And this one's going to go to a political affiliate out in the Missouri side of things. This is via our Starcade Media family. And this is in regards to the stadiums and whether the Chiefs and Royals are going to stay on the Missouri side or go to the Kansas side. According to our Starkey Media family, they said the Missouri governor, Mike Parson, says he expects to put in an aid plan together by the end of the year to keep Chiefs and Royals from moving. Well, Mr. Mayor, I have only one thing in response to say to that. That's literally how I laughed when I first saw it. I was Homelander. Let's do that one again. Yeah. That if you were going to do something that was going to keep your teams in place, you would have already done it. The voting is what caused all this. You really think for a second the billionaires like to be embarrassed the way they were? They didn't just get voted down. They got voted down vehemently. And we heard John Sherman, the Royals owner, his wife come out and say that we'll never work with Johnson County again. That's really one of the only areas that makes sense for the Royals to stay put if they were to stay in Missouri because it's close to the state line where over 50% of both Royals and Chiefs ticket holders live, which is in the Kansas side, in particular on the Johnson County side of things. Look, I think it's a foregone conclusion, guys. The Chiefs are going to be moving to Kansas. And I think there's a really good chance that the Royals do as well. And my theory, and what I would love to see the Royals do, is I'd love to see them move their stadium, ironically, to downtown KCK and develop that area. Because I know that's what they wanted to do over the Missouri side, and I would still love to see that as well because a downtown ballpark makes all the sense in the world for baseball. But if they can't get it in downtown KCMO, which is not looking good right now, I would love to see the Royals and downtown KCK link up and build it over by that stadium, by the 7th Street Casino, and just have that area grow. Because right now it's pretty run down. It's pretty ghetto down there. I've lived out here for 25 years now. It's pretty much been the same since. And I would love to see that happen. So, but Governor Parson, LOL, bro. Like, you're dealing with Frank White and Mayor Quinton. these guys, all three of you guys have been like the Three Stooges during this whole process, man. And I'm not even trying to like get resentful or hateful or personal, but you guys have absolutely dropped the freaking ball. You guys have been Kadarius Toney with this shit. So for that, for this late little spree of good faith and goodwill you're trying to sprinkle to the Missouri people, do me a solid, Mr. Mark Parson, and hold this ale. We appreciate it. This has been one of the faster shows we've had in quite some time. But you know what? Sometimes we got to have shows like this. But at least we have shows. At least we have something to talk about. We have things to chew on. I would love to hear from you guys. Let me know this week about where you guys see the 5 best dynasties in NFL history. Which quarterback outside Patrick Mahomes would you build your franchise around? And who are your top 10 quarterbacks? I would love to hear that. I know this is like low-hanging fruit, but at this time of the year, guys, we kind of have to go off things like that, and that's what we're going to do. But we know before we know it, training camp will be here, and we will be talking a lot of Chiefs football, and I hope you guys are stoked about it. But in the meantime, man, that's pretty much all I have for you guys. I hope you guys have had an absolute blast. I know I have. I do it every single week with you guys. So for Trevor that's not here, for the great Clay Wendler that puts all together on the back end of things, Red Trump Setup, please go check them out, by the way, guys. And if you have not already, just so you know, we do our show Arrowhead Allies on the Starcade Media YouTube show. We also do it here on YouTube as well, the Spoken Podcast, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. Myself, along with Shaggy Shane, Brian B. Shinen, Clint Switzer, and Noah Groniger, have a show called Arrowhead Allies. We usually have incredible guests. Just over the last few weeks has been Willie Rofe, Sean Merriman, Reggie Tung. I mean, there's been some really, really like OG Chiefs players, OG Chargers players. There's gonna be some great guests, guys, throughout the year. So definitely come and hang out with us on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Central Time, and we will glad to have you guys in the chat as well. But like I said, for this show, for what we do here at the Spoken Podcast, for Starcade Media, I'm Lance Twidwell. Episode 273 of the Spoken Podcast is done, finished, and finito. And until we're back here in 1 week's time, with Trevor hopefully back for episode 274. Well, guys, I can only say one thing. We out of this bitch.